Hi, everybody. It's Monday again. I hope you all got the schedule. I hope you enjoyed last night's concert with Sarah Bareilles. This week we have the Jeffrey Epstein documentary series from Netflix, Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich. We have Cirque du Soleil. We have a short film from the Irish Repertoire Theatre, The Gifts You Gave to Me, Boston Symphony. On Thursday night is an American Pageant of the Arts. It's a 1962 Kennedy Center special. I think it's the first time Yo-Yo Ma performed, and he was only 7 years old. I don't know which Andrew Lloyd Webber musical is this week. I've got a couple TED Talks. And a few things. I've been putting on these tiny desk concerts. And next week I'll put more on. Please call me if you like them or don't, because no one said anything, so I'm not sure. Shelley will be back on Thursday with the Shelley Show. We also have Ice Cream Sunday cards coming along this week. I wasn't able to get it on your weekly calendar. Well, I could have. I actually forgot to put it on. So today, by the time you see this, it'll be too late. First and second floor north. Wednesday, third, fourth, and fifth floors north. Friday, second and third floors south. And next Monday, fourth and fifth floors south. So Shelley, Laura, I don't know who else, maybe me, will be delivering Sundays to you. Hopefully you'll all be around and enjoy that. As of this morning, we went over 160,000 COVID cases in New Jersey and 11,600 plus deaths from the virus. If there is anything that we're not airing that you want, please let me know and I will try to find it. I said that every week. And I appreciate that those of you who've been calling and sending me notes. It helps. One thing I do need you to do, though, a few people have requested specific movies, and I had a list going on my desk of which ones, so I could order them from Netflix and get them in the queue, and I cannot find the piece of paper. So if you ask for a movie and I haven't run it in the last 2 weeks, please call me again, because I cannot for the life of me find that piece of paper. I'm sure as soon as you start calling me, I'll find it. But right now, I can't. So, please call me if there's a specific movie. There really is only one story right now. And it's absolutely horrible. And we've had this conversation over and over and over again. It's race in America, and it's the police killing black people. All right? Make no mistake that that's what this is. And I am so tired of seeing this on TV. I am so tired of this happening. I'm going to go through some statistics first. So you can really understand the issue. These are statistics just from the last 6 years, and not including 2020. So it's from 2013 to 2019. In New York, 71 African Americans were killed by the police. Now, in New York, African Americans, New York State, African Americans make up 15.8% of the population, yet they are 46% of the victims of police killings. Massachusetts, 6.7% of the citizens of Massachusetts are African Americans. 27% of those killed by the police are black. Pennsylvania, 58 black people killed by the police. The population of Pennsylvania, the African American population of Pennsylvania is just under 11%, yet they make up 34% of the victims of police murder. And that's what it is. It's murder. New Jersey is really bad. New Jersey has about a 14% African American population. 50% of all police shooting deaths are black citizens. Maryland, 29% of the population in Maryland is African American, yet they make up 63% of police shooting deaths. I'm not going to go through every state. Those are the blue states. Believe it or not, the southern state statistics are not as bad as the northern states. But any is too many. And you have to ask yourself, would any of these people be dead if they looked like me? And the answer to that question is probably not. What exactly did George Floyd do? Let's talk about the latest incident. We've all seen the horrific pictures of a police officer with his knee and the full weight of his body on this man's neck, who says he cannot breathe, he can't move, and yet the police officer continues to sit on his neck for almost 9 minutes till the man died. That is not in any police manual. It is not allowed. 3 other police officers stood by and did nothing. What did he do? He was in a store, and the storekeeper called the police because they said he was trying to pass a counterfeit $20 bill. $20. Now, many of you know that I was a retail manager. I was the night manager at a supermarket for 13 years. And I will tell you that I would never call the police for $20. If you took a bill that was no good, you put the customer out of the supermarket or the market, you tell them not to come back. If they cause a drama, you call the police. But $20 is absolutely not worth the time, money, and energy to prosecute someone for. And the chances are that they probably got it from somewhere if it was only a 20. There is a difference if somebody comes in and buys $500 worth of stuff and they're using counterfeit dollars. That means that they have some source somewhere of that, and you have a responsibility to call the police at that point. But in order to prosecute somebody for $20, in any state, by the way, you have to have the person arrested. You have to go down to the police department, whoever the manager is, which would have been me, excuse me, file a complaint. If the person pleads not guilty, you're then going to have to go to court. The company you work for or the owner of a smaller shop has to pay you, lose you during that time, possibly get a lawyer for themselves to make sure it's prosecuted, and to protect you and the store owner or the corporation. This is a lot of time for $20. You just don't do it. It is absolutely not worth your time. But the store owner did call the police. We've now seen video that George Floyd was in the back of the police car. He was cuffed and in the back of the police car. If you haven't seen that video, I'll be happy to run it, though it's disturbing. The officer, one of the officers, is in the back of the police car, and it appears as if he's punching him or hitting him, but the door blocks the camera angle. Next thing is, he's out of the car on the other side of the car. Why did the police take him out of the car? He could not have opened the door himself because he was cuffed, and police cars, the back seats of police cars don't have handles to let anyone out from the back seat. You have to open them from the outside. So how did he go from being inside the car to then out on the ground on the other side of the car? So if there's any question whether the police did something wrong, ask yourself that. How did he get out of that car? He couldn't have by himself. This is a murder. This is what this is. And I am just sick to death over the pictures, over the fact that it happens. And you know, it happens more often than we think it does. We only see it when people took pictures. And in this case, there were a lot of people taking videos with their camera because it was obviously overreaction by the police. They had 4 police officers there for $20, for $20. You know how 4 cops show up for $20? And I know I keep saying $20 because the man is dead for $20. That is completely unacceptable in America. There's no way he had a printing press in his house. So even if he knew somebody who gave him the 20, the counterfeit 20, he was not a mastermind counterfeiter. And chances are he got that 20 from somewhere else. That's generally what happens. And he is dead for $20. I cannot get that out of my head. And you know, I'm a little disorganized today because I was watching so many of these protests and the police reaction and overreaction this weekend. It is just so upsetting. It happens too much. But meanwhile, armed white people are going to Capitol buildings with submachine guns, semi-automatics and automatic weapons, and nothing happens to them. Zero. Nothing happens to them. A black man in Minnesota passes a $20 counterfeit bill and ends up dead. There's something very wrong in America when that's happening. We know the White House response was inappropriate, as usual. So now we have the protests. There are protests all across this country right now. Anchorage, Birmingham, Montgomery, Little Rock, Phoenix, Beverly Hills, Fresno, La Mesa, Los Angeles, Oakland, Sacramento, San Diego, San Francisco, San Jose, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Wilmington, Delaware, Jacksonville, Miami, Tallahassee, Tampa, Atlanta, Augusta, Savannah, Honolulu, Des Moines, Boise, Idaho Falls, which is very odd, Chicago, Indianapolis, Topeka, Lexington, Louisville, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Lake Charles, New Orleans, Springfield, Baltimore, Portland, Maine, Detroit, Grand Rapids, Lansing, Duluth, Minneapolis, St. Paul, Ferguson, Kansas City, St. Louis, Billings, Montana, Helena, Missoula, Montana, Charlotte, Bismarck, North Dakota, Fargo, Lincoln, Omaha, New Hampshire, Manchester, Jersey City, Newark, Trenton, Albuquerque, Santa Fe, Las Vegas, Reno, Albany, Buffalo, New York, Rochester, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, Dayton, Toledo, Oklahoma, Tulsa, Eugene, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Salem, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Charleston, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, Sioux Falls, Memphis, Nashville, Austin, Corpus Christi, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Laredo, Lubbock, San Antonio, Salt Lake City, Charlottesville, Virginia, Hampton, Virginia, Norfolk, Richmond, Burlington, Vermont, Seattle, Tacoma, Green Bay, Madison, Milwaukee, and Cheyenne, Wyoming. There have also been protests in Atlantic City and Trenton and Camden. There is a vigil on Wednesday in Teaneck at the Armory. Why are so many people rising up? Is it just George Floyd? No. This is, I believe, a combination right now of frustration from COVID. It's COVID, racial rage, and economic pain. It is a combination. This country, this house is on fire right now, my friends. And it just took one spark to light it. And that spark was George Floyd. Because I don't think there is anybody in America that can honestly say to themselves that the police didn't do anything wrong there. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's some white supremacists who say it, but even they know that that was police brutality and complete unnecessary force, given what the crime was that he committed. That, by the way, he had not been found guilty of. We are still presumed innocent in America. And it happens too much. And all weekend I've heard on TV and read in the newspapers and seen, oh, we have to have a conversation about race. We have to start talking about this from black intellectuals and white intellectuals and everybody else. You know what? I am tired of having that conversation. We've been having this conversation since Plymouth Rock, since the Civil War, since the 60s, since the 70s. My whole life, all of our whole lives, we've been having this conversation. And you know what? I don't think we need to have a conversation anymore. You are allowed to be a racist. You are allowed to not like black people, not like white people, not like Hispanics, not like Jewish people, not like Christians, not like Muslims. You're allowed to. You're allowed to have your own prejudices, okay? But if you are a police officer, you are not allowed to kill black people because they're black. And that's exactly what's happening. And it's simple. There's no more conversation about this. There's a very simple solution. The police need to stop killing black people. Period. And if they do, they shouldn't be third-degree murder, which is apparently what they're charging this guy with in Minneapolis. It needs to be first-degree murder. The police have a responsibility to act better than us. When the police do this, they are worse than the criminals they are supposedly pursuing. If people don't trust the police, the next thing we have is anarchy and chaos. And that's what's happening right now. We have in America this week 100,000 people dead from the pandemic. 40 million people are out of work and on unemployment. Now, there are actually more people out of work. 40 million are the ones who have applied for unemployment. There are more than that. And our cities are in flames over police brutality. And what did the president do this week while this was all going on? He attacked China, the World Health Organization, social media, Barack Obama, and the mayors of riot-torn cities. That's what he did. He bizarrely claimed that Antifa was behind these. Antifa is the anti-fascist. That's the nickname for them. Antifa is not a specific group. It's a conglomeration of people that say they are Antifa. There's no group. So he bizarrely, I think yesterday, said that he was going to have them named a terrorist group. Well, they're not a group. And the president has no authority to do that. We don't have a domestic terrorist law. We've been trying to get one for years and years for the white supremacists and other groups, but Congress has not passed that. So we actually don't have a domestic terrorist law, which means you can't name someone a domestic terrorist group because there's legally no such thing. All right, but he said it anyway. What else is new? He, yesterday when the protesters were outside the White House, they took the president to a bunker and then they turned off all the lights at the White House. Which is so bizarre. I've been to many, many protests at the White House. I've never seen them turn the lights off. I don't know what they thought that was going to do. I would imagine that would make it harder to keep the White House secure. But he ran and they turned the lights off. I thought that was funny. I don't understand that. And then he was tweeting. He tweeted, "Crossing state lines to incite violence is a federal crime. Liberal governors and mayors must get much tougher, or the federal government will step in and do what has to be done. And that includes using the unlimited power of our military and many arrests." Great job last night at the White House by the Secret Service. They were not only totally professional, but very cool. I was inside, watched every move, and couldn't have felt more safe. He wasn't inside. He was in a bunker. They let the protesters scream and rant as much as they wanted, but whenever someone got too frisky or out of line, they would quickly come down on them, hard. Didn't know what hit them. The front line was replaced with fresh agents like magic. Big crowd, professionally organized, but nobody came close to breaching the fence. If they had, they would have been greeted with the most vicious dogs and most ominous weapons I've ever seen. That's when people would have been really badly hurt, at least. Many Secret Service agents just waiting for action. We put the young ones on the front line, sir. They love it. That's what the president is tweeting in the middle of nationwide protests. He then suggested on Saturday that his supporters come to the White House, I guess, to fight with the protesters. Tonight, I understand, is MAGA night at the White House, he said. So once again, he's inciting violence. We have a president who is inciting violence rather than calming everything down. Now, the difference between that and the presumptive Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden, the Vice President went to Wilmington to one of the protests to talk to people. And he wrote, "We are a nation in pain, but we must not allow this pain to destroy us. We are a nation enraged, but we cannot allow our rage to consume us. We are a nation exhausted, but we will not allow our exhaustion to defeat us. The only way to bear this pain is to turn all that anguish to purpose. And as president, I will help lead this conversation, and most importantly, I will listen, just as I did today visiting the site of the protests in Wilmington." That's what a president says in a time of unrest. He doesn't threaten protesters with dogs and ominous weapons and talk about how great it was and how safe he was. Well, George Floyd wasn't safe. Trayvon Martin wasn't safe. He wasn't killed by the police. We'll go through that. Now today, he was on a phone call with governors. It was supposed to be Mike Pence, but he got on it. And he told the governors that they will look like jerks if they don't order protesters arrested and imprisoned. Now, this was a private call, but the New York Times got the audio. He told the governors, you have to dominate. If you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. They're going to run over you, and you're going to look like a bunch of jerks. He then said you have to arrest people, and you have to try people, and they have to go to jail for long periods of time. Yeah. He apparently was watching television of the violence and some of the looting, and he called the people committing those acts scum, and ask the governors, why aren't you prosecuting them? I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. Why aren't you prosecuting them? Prosecuting who? We know that what has been happening is you have legitimate protests that are then turning violent. Now, the evidence is that the people protesting are actually not the people starting the violence. That is a secondary group. Now, I don't know if it's Antifa or whoever, but in a few cities, we have seen video of white people coming and breaking windows and then basically scurrying out the side. So I'm not sure who those people are either. They could be Antifa, they could be white supremacists. I don't know. But the people that are protesting do not seem to be the ones that are starting the violent acts. That is a second group of people who appear to be using these protests to loot and steal and burn things. And that might be what the police need to concentrate on, not the actual protesters, because that's not who is committing these violent acts. I watched CNN and MSNBC footage from various cities, and you could see St. Louis, for example, there was a police officer who got separated from his troop, or I don't know what they call it, and a group of black protesters surrounded him so he could get out safely. And that was when some of the violent acts started occurring. It seems like when it gets dark, that's when it starts. So it does not appear that the people who are actually protesting are the ones doing this. I know I'm repeating myself, but if you're watching these on TV, pay attention to who's doing what in these scenes. And I actually really liked Chris Cuomo last night because he was pointing that out at one point, that these people had just shown up and then all of a sudden they were lighting things on fire and doing stuff, but the actual protesters who were in the street continued their protests. So I think that's what has to be looked at if we're going to be prosecuting anybody, because certainly the people just showing up to express their rage and frustration are not the ones doing all these things. I just don't know what else to say today. I guess I should have followed my own advice and turned off the TV, but I couldn't stop watching, and I watched a little during the day, and I was actually very happy to see a lot of police officers in various cities around the country joining the march and holding up signs and police brutality, and I don't think they were being sarcastic. I think that the police, the good policemen, don't want the bad policemen on the forces. I think it makes their jobs harder. I have police officers in my family, and I have friends who are police officers, and they don't want these people on the force. Nor do we. But I think that at some point we need to set up a system, a better system than exists now, to get bad cops off the force. Because we know the man that killed George Floyd had like 20 complaints against him for brutality, and he had also killed more than one person. So this wasn't a first-time thing where this was not a young officer who was in over his head and didn't know what to do or was overzealous. This was a veteran police officer who had 20 complaints against him, and if I didn't write it down, but I believe he had that George Floyd was the third or fourth person he had killed in Minneapolis. That's crazy, since in 6 years, from 2013 to 2019, only 34 people total, white and black, in the entire state of Minnesota were killed by the police. 3 plus now this one officer was responsible for. That's more than an anomaly. That clearly indicates a problem with that officer. And he should, I mean, I know he's been arrested, but his behavior should have been checked a long time ago, and he should have been off the force a long time ago. And that's something that needs to be looked at across the board, across the country, at all the police forces, not just Minnesota. That's really all I want to talk about today. And I know this isn't very long today because it's just really upsetting. I'm sure you're all upset about it too. But what I do want to do is I want to say their names because we talk about African Americans getting killed, black people getting killed, whatever phrase you use. And I think that we have to start remembering that their names, not just 1 or 2, their names. Now, the list I have are people, African Americans, American citizens, who have been killed by the police that we have video of. These are the stories that we've heard about. So if you want to bow your head, say whatever prayer you're comfortable with, I'm going to end this by reading their names. Eric Garner, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Ezell Ford, Dante Parker, Michelle Cusseau, Laquan McDonald, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Remain Brisbane, Jerome Reed, George Mann, Matthew Ajibadi, Frank Smart, Natasha McKenna, Tony Robinson, Anthony Hill, Maya Hall, Philip White, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, William Chapman II, Alexia Christian, Brendan Glenn, Victor Manuel LaRosa, Jonathan Sanders, Freddie Blue, Joseph Mann, Salvato Ellswood, Sandra Bland, Albert Joseph David, Darius Stewart, Billy Ray Davis, Samuel Dubose, Michael Sabbie, Brian Keith Day, Christian Taylor, Troy Robinson, Asham Farrow Manley, Felix Kumi, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Lamont Jones, Patterson Brown, Dominic Hutchinson, Anthony Ashford, Alonzo Smith, Tyree Crawford, India Kager, Levante Biggs, Michael Lee Marshall, Jamar Clark, Richard Perkins, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Benny Lee Tigner, Miguel Espinal, Michael Noel, Kevin Matthews, Betty Jones, Quintonia LeGrier, Keith Childress Jr., Janet Wilson, Randy Nelson, Anthony Scott, Wendell Celestine, David Joseph, Callan Rocamore, Dejon Perkins, Christopher Davis, Marco Loud, Peter Gaines, Tori Robinson, Darius Robinson, Kevin Hicks, Mary Trujillo, DeMarcus Samir, Willie Tillman, Terrell Thomas, Sylville Smith, Alton Sterling, Philandro Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Paul O'Neill, Alterio Woods, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Ronnell Foster, Stephen Clark, Antoine Rose II, Botham Jean, Pamela Turner, Dominic Clayton, Atanya Jefferson, Christopher Whitfield, Christopher McCorvey, Eric Reason, Michael Lorenzo Dean, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd.